What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. In this conversation, I sat down with Steph Z and Amy Snow. Steph is the founder, and Amy Snow is the board member of Section Z, which is a 5013C. They use live sports as an engagement platform to foster critical competence, confidence, and collaboration skills to better level the playing field and set all girls up for lifelong and career success. They've taken over 1,500 girls to see 44 live sports events. They've built relationships with 4 different leagues, including the NWSL, the WNBA, and the X Games, and they have served over 30 schools in various school districts in the LA area. So, in this conversation, we talked about what Section Z is, the mission, how important accessibility is for girls to stay in sports, to enjoy sports, to watch sports. We also talked about the study that they conducted, and it was the largest and most inclusive multi-generational study that we've ever heard of in the United States, where they had a sample of almost 5,000 girls and women from the ages of 9 to 75. So we dove into this study. There were so many incredible insights, even some surprising insights that we talked about as it relates to girls and women in sport. And so I hope you enjoy this conversation. It's so important what Section Z is doing, and I hope you'll find a way to get involved in whatever way you can. But first things first, enjoy the conversation, share it with a friend if this impacts you, and we'll see you in the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. Super excited to have you both on the show. Really looking forward to the conversation today. So thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I love what you guys do, Section Z. I'm glad you guys reached out. So I'd love to first kind of hear a quick little intro about you both, kind of what you're all about as individuals, and then we'll get into kind of Section Z, what your guys' mission is, and we'll kind of dive into everything that Section Z has to offer.
Awesome. Should I start or you want to go first?
You go.
Okay. So I'm Steph Z. A little bit about me. I grew up in New York, Long Island. I've been an athlete all my life, and I feel like, the long story to Section Z was that sports is kind of the only place where I felt like I fit in, where I felt like I belonged. I've had many different careers. I worked in fashion world. I had a high-end clothing line. We sold to like Saks, Neiman's, Bloomingdale's. We did a licensing deal for Warner Brothers. Then from there, I went and I worked on morning radio, and I was a morning show host on a country station. Like, this girl from New York on a country station was pretty ridiculous, but super fun. And then in 2020, I was in a pretty bad accident. I was tossed out of a golf cart, flipped, landed on me. I was airlifted out. I had a brain injury, and it was on March 6th. So it was right before the whole world shut down. So it's a very interesting experience. Like, COVID for me is something very different than everyone else. Everyone's like, oh, the store is open. No one's that. I mean, like, it's crazy. And I'm like, I'm in bed. So I feel like that kind of like led down the path of, what do I want to build that's kind of bigger than me? And I saw the common thread through all my life was that being an athlete and the confidence that that gave me set me up for success. So that's kind of like the little blurb of like me in 2 seconds.
I love that. I love that. And I have more like follow-up questions we'll get into, but Amy, go ahead and you introduce yourself.
I'm Amy Snow. I am a board member of Section Z along with Steph and help her with strategy as she builds it out. I too am a lifelong athlete. When I first met Steph and first heard about all this, it immediately resonated with me. I was the only girl in my T-ball league when I was 8 years old. All the way to today, I very often find myself the only woman in a meeting. I've been in the business world for over 30 years and work in a male-dominated industry. And just have seen firsthand that the things that I learned playing sports probably taught me more about how to navigate and how to be a good member of any team than anything else. And so I just feel like there's a lot of value in this. And I feel like the audience that there continues to be an audience that isn't being reached. And I think that Steph's making a difference in that arena. And that's important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Steph, you said like sports was like one of the only places where you felt like you fit in, right? And I can like so resonate with that. And same thing with you, Amy, like being in this kind of male dominated space, whether it be, the sports world, business industry, stuff like that. So I feel like this, all of your guys' experience, right, in sports has led you, on this common thread of like, we want to help girls so that they can write your three C's, if I'm correct, is competence, confidence, and collaboration.
Oh, you
Right. And so
studied.
I studied a little bit.
Wow. I saw the follow come in.
Yeah, I studied. So yeah, let's get into Section Z because, and if you guys are on watching on YouTube, you can see behind Steph, she's got all her girls behind her. I'm guessing that's a Angel City game, right?
That is
Yep.
an Angel City game.
Yep. So let's kind of dive into Section Z. Like, what is it, and like why did you start it? What's the mission behind it? I know that's like a big, broad question, but let's dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, the mission statement is like we leverage the excitements of live sports to set all girls up for success. Like, that's like the one elevator pitch, but like what that means is, we've all said it, right? Like, we're all athletes. It teaches us these transferable skills, but there's also a problem because all girls don't get to continue to go. All girls don't get this inspirational factor. Like those girls in that picture behind me, half of them live less than 5 miles from the stadium and they've never gotten to go to a game. So for me, like when I thought about it, still as an adult who likes to think I'm an athlete, but like washed up and when I play, I get hurt, being in an arena like that, the feeling that you get, the feeling of community, the feeling of everyone checks everything at the door. People check their race, their religion, their socioeconomic
Yeah.
status. If you are there, it doesn't matter. Like we were at a World Series game the other night, like Saturday night. Like if the person next to you is wearing the same jersey as you and your team scores, it doesn't matter who they are. That
Right.
sense of community and that sense of inspiration that exists in a sports stadium. And like, I believe that sports is the biggest contributor to success, period. But like that feeling, once you give young women that feeling and show them what's possible, it's super infectious. And it's like, for us, that kind of builds the trust that we care about them, that we want them to be successful. So that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like for us, it was like, yeah, we take them to a game. We have these workshops. We did a curriculum with Angel City that we implemented in the schools. But it's like that first step. You know what I mean? So it's like, the program itself consists of the girls get transportation to event. Transportation we found is like one of the biggest barriers.
Sure.
It is like the biggest barrier to get there. So they
Right.
get transportation, they get a t-shirt. So it's like they get that merch, they get that swag effect,
Yep.
They get, we've figured out that they like to be on the Jumbotron. So we reverse engineer that and make these big bright signs and they get on the Jumbotron. It's like
There you
they
go.
feel a part of something. And a lot of the places where these young women come from, it's like, I want to recreate the feeling that it gave for me, and like, I know everyone's dealt, the random deck of cards as kids, you know what I mean? And I don't want to try and compare anyone's childhoods.
For sure.
But like for me, like being on the field, being with my team, it gave me this sense of safety that I didn't feel anywhere else. And like, we want to show these girls that exists. And then what's possible from that, right? It's like
Right.
some of the Section Z experience game day, like the game day experiences include like a panel of discussion from women in, career positions so that we can show them kind of what's possible. So it's really taking them to the game, exposing them to that excitement, igniting that like dreamer within to be like, oh my God. And they get that we care about them. And then I feel like they're a little bit more open to what we want to show them. And like what we want to show them is we're not like trying to sell them on something, except like that their success is worth it for them, that they should invest in themselves because we believe in them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you guys, it's since June 2023, right? You've taken like 1,500 girls to these live sports. And so did you guys start it in 2023 or like what was the timeline? Because it's like still this is a super new thing and you guys have had so much success, it seems like.
Yeah, so the whole story, I'm a season ticket holder at Angel City.
Mm-hmm.
And I, the seasons got pushed off because of COVID. You know what I mean? Like people, everything happened the way that it did when fans were allowed. And, I remember going to the first Angel City game and I had so much excitement. I felt like I was like 5 years old. I was like, oh my God, women's pro sports, here we go. But, like super pumped. And I got in, I have season tickets, I have front row. I was like, I can do this now. I can go. I'm treating myself. Me and five of my friends, we got 6 season tickets. Like that was the most you can get right up front. And like 5 minutes into the game, this wave of sadness came over me. And I was like, man, what would my life have been like if this existed when I was in high school?
For sure.
Like I used to work in the action sports industry and I got like kicked out of the boys club and like it's the same. We all have similar stories, right? So I was just like, what would my life have been like? And then I sat back and I was like, and would I have been able to afford to go? Would I have had someone to take me? And I was like, all the different businesses I had, I was like, this is the problem that I want to solve. So that's kind of how it started. And then it was just like serendipity. Like it was a weird series of events that happened. I used to, because I sat in the front row, I used to bug the guy that would walk by and give out the bracelets for the press conferences. I'd be like, yo, how do I get into the press conference? Like, I want to go in, whatever. And he had told me about this like gathering that happens at the stadium after the game. He's like, oh, I can't do that, but like, you should go here and like, you could talk to people. So I went there, a couple of times. I was like, this is really cool. And then like it's a crazy story and like this is honestly the truth. And then I got an email from this organization that I've been to one event in 2015 at, and it happened to be that Julie Ehrman was going to be a speaker at this event.
Okay, yeah.
So Julie Ehrman, president of Angel City. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So then the next game, I went to this private thing that happens after the game, and I saw Julie Ehrman, and everyone was like, good game, good game, good game. And I was like, hey, I just want to say I'm really excited to hear you speak at this thing. I want to like introduce myself. My name's Steph, whatever. And as I was on that Zoom, people kept asking like, Angel City, it's great, women owned, da 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 da. How do we help? And she was like, buy tickets, buy tickets. And like that, she said a lot of things. Like, I don't want to quote her, but that was like the thing that like I heard. I was like, oh, buy tickets, like show up, go support this women's sports, So I hung up that phone and I felt really inspired. And I called up Angel City and I was like, what's the biggest group tickets that you have left? And they had 25 tickets. And I bought 25 tickets. And it was kind of that whole, like, if you build it, they will come. And I was like, I'll find a bus, I'll find a school, I'll figure it out. Let me just get the tickets. And it happened, I was in physical therapy at the time. And it happened that my physical therapist knew someone that owned a bus company. And I was like, hey, like, do you think maybe I can like can I like talk to this guy? And he was open, and I have season tickets to the Chargers too. So I wound up trading him season tickets to the Chargers so that he would use the bus to pick up a school. And he knew someone who was an athletic director from Long Island, where I'm from. And I'm like, hey, can you get me on the phone with him? Like, cut to like 4 days later, I was in this school. Like, do you guys want to go on this road trip? Like, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
The next Angel City game rolls around, and I see Julie Ehrman upstairs again. I was like, hey, you really inspired me. I got this group of girls, and like, I'm going to bring them to the game. Would you come and say hello? And she was like, wait, you did what? And like, I was like sending emails. And anyway, so that first game, which was the last game of the 2022 season, was September 25th, 2022. I brought 25 girls to the game, and I was like, okay, I have to do that. Like, let me fund this. Let me figure out what I don't know to try and like pitch this to the team. And I kind of like figured out what I don't know. And then we started the next season going to games. So it was like very quick and it worked out. And like Julie Ehrman kind of really saw, like, she was the one who got me connected to the community team and really kind of like saw what I was trying to do. And ever since, we've been at a game every time. So then it took a while. Like, I had to file all the nonprofit stuff, you know what I mean? Like, to get a C3 and do all the paperwork and stuff. So yes, technically since June 2023, we're a 501c3. And we've taken about 1,500 girls to games. So that was kind of like the long and short of like
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because like you said, it was like everything kind of like lined up. And that's I believe that's when you know you're on the right track and the right path is
Yeah.
when it just like serendipity, it just like comes. It's like, oh my gosh, how did this just happen? Right. And you can call it luck, but I think it's like it was all like there for you to do.
Yeah, and I feel like that continued to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, even when Amy and I started talking about it, it's like anecdotally we know all this stuff, and it's like once we've now done this research project that Amy led, and that's her domain, and it like really solid like verifies. That's not the right word, but
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
makes everything that we think proven now and real. So it really will help us continue to do what we kind of already knew was working, but now like people will believe us, you know?
Yeah. Now you have like the hard and fast facts in the research, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, perfect seg. Go ahead. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, Steph knew these things more than anecdotally. She was seeing it play out
Yeah.
and she saw the impact of these things. But every time she was talking to people, it seemed like there was a hunger for more data. And so we were kind of like, hey, that's something that we can probably make happen if everybody wants this data and no one is investing in collecting it and analyzing it. Like that's something that we uniquely can bring to the table. So let's do it.
Yeah.
So we approached, I've been a researcher for over 30 years. That's my primary line of work. And so we approached a data collection firm with the idea and said, hey, here's what we're thinking. Women's sports is projected to be a $1.3 billion industry this year. Everyone Steph talks to is citing the same tired statistic from, a 5-year-old Ernst & Young study that was done among women, mostly white privileged women who made it to the C-suite. And we're all drawing conclusions from that. Like, it's so much more important to look at this in total and find out what's actually happening in America among real people. And so we approached a research firm, Protege, which is a national data collection firm, and they were immediately like, we're in. Yes, we will do it. And so we worked with them and did what we think is the largest single study of the impact of women playing, watching, and attending live sports that's ever been done in America. And so to Steph's point, it just kind of is another piece of the puzzle and lends some credibility to why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, so the study was you guys had a sample of about 5,000 girls. Was it girls and women, right? Okay, ranging from 9 to 75. So that's a big
Huge.
range. That's a huge range, right? So
Yeah.
that's and the sample size. And you guys just finished the study or conducted the
It's
study
very fresh.
very
Yeah, it was
fresh, right?
unveiled in July. The idea actually came from the Harvard Health Study, which is a 1938. They started studying this cohort of men that went to Harvard, and the goal was to find out what leads to happiness in life. And so it's a really cool study. It's gotten a lot of press and it has a lot of implications. They found that it's, health and well-being and a sense of the well-being that comes from being in close relationships, right? And so we kind of went into it saying, hey, we feel like there's an interesting parallel to sports here, but we don't want to wait 86 years to get the data. So, how can we hack this? And so what we did is we interviewed everyone ranging in age from 9 to 75 in a nationally representative match to census sample so that we can slice it by generational cohort. And we can say Gen Alpha, Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, Boomers, and compare. And it gave us some really interesting insights about the implications of Title IX, for example, participation in sports, the impact of, the past 51 years of how it's not equal funding still, but more equal maybe. And one of the really critical parts was to be able to quantify the girls who are being left out, basically. What are the barriers? And now that we all agree, no one refutes that sports have benefits, transferable life skill benefits. and parents do everything they can to give their kids these benefits, but it's not equal, right? Everything's
Right.
equal. And so there are kids who just aren't able to play sports, aren't able to participate in any extracurricular activities, never attended a live sporting event, never watch or stream sports. And so they're just kind of blocked from all of those benefits. And so we wanted to quantify that and help prove some of the impact that these investments could make.
Yeah, and like, so speaking of barriers, one of the biggest barriers, if not the biggest, was like access to transportation, whether that be transportation to live sports, to a practice, to a game, like stuff like that, right? What are some of the other like biggest barriers that prevent girls from either participating or watching live sports?
So an interesting one, we found that the number 2 activity among girls is actually babysitting their siblings.
Wow,
So
really?
I'll tell you right out of the gate that that's
Yeah.
not a barrier that the boys are facing.
No.
Yeah.
So lower income households that maybe have a single
Yeah.
parent, maybe have more children, those girls have to come home after school and watch their siblings.
Yeah, they have to be caretakers.
We've had girls too that like, which breaks my heart. And I know that I'm like super empathetic sometimes to a fault. We've had girls that like can't go to our game day experience like morning of because they have to stay home and watch their little brother or sister. And it's like, it kills me because it's like, they want to go, they were signed up to go. And like, it just shows that there's many experiences where like, I fall down this thing, like, how do we get babysitters?
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you solve that?
Right. Like that's like another solve, but yeah, that was when we saw that, it was pretty crazy that's like, I would have never thought that, but like,
Yeah,
now when you
same.
say it, it's like, I feel like the research, there's a lot of stuff that you would never think, but then when you say it, you're like, oh yeah, totally, that's totally right. It makes sense. Like, how did no one think of that? You know what I mean?
Another
Yeah.
one that kind of came out of left field for us and is really eye-opening is my parents are afraid I'll get hurt, which
Yeah.
obviously has financial undertones, right? If
Yeah.
a child is participating in a sport and the parent's at work and the kid gets hurt, the parent has to leave work. Maybe they don't have insurance. Maybe that means the kid's gonna have to stay home and doesn't have childcare.
Right.
So that one was kind of
Interesting.
unexpected. And I think more than 1 in 10 kids who said they had a barrier said it was that their parents are afraid they're going to get hurt.
Just thinking out loud here, like, is there a solve for that? Not that it's like what you guys would do, but is there a solve for that? Is it more education about like how healthy sports can be? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, education is the answer for everything.
Yeah, right.
Education's the answer for everything, but I think too, like, I mean, a kid could be out playing in the yard with their younger sibling, fall and break
Right.
their arm. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
You could do anything.
I feel like it's just the exposure, like, you know what I mean? Like in some people's minds, that exposure to something that there could be injury. And also, to be really honest, I think some of it's messaging. Like, I'm like, not to get on the soapbox or anything, but it's like, you look now at Sports Center, it's like the plays that are there, the plays where people like pummeling each other. You know what I mean? It's like the big crazy play where it's like maybe not so necessary. If someone would like tackle correctly, they wouldn't have to like maul somebody and they'd still get them down. So it's like we sensationalize these things that people want to see. It's like if it bleeds, it leads. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's what some people might think is you know what I mean? Like why it's more risky to participate in sports.
Right. I mean, like obviously participating in sports or any activity like that, there's a risk of being injured, but the rewards and the chance of getting injured are a lot less than you know what I mean? It's like
100%.
yeah, so it's just yeah, education and what you said, what are you seeing on the media and the news, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
look,
people
it
aren't
doesn't
talking.
even,
Go ahead,
sorry.
sorry.
It doesn't even have to be playing, right? Like we found that 44% of girls from households that earn under $25,000 a year have never attended a live sporting event in their life.
Yeah.
And 47% have never even watched or streamed a game. So, there's clearly barriers aside from just play
Yeah.
and participation. And there's more and more research from around the world, well beyond our study, of the benefits of attending. There's a study in Japan, there's a study in the UK showing the positive psychological effects of watching and that sense of community. So, it goes beyond just participating.
Yeah, and I mean, you could probably agree to this, but like watching back when we were kids, and I don't know how old you guys are, but watching the 1999 World Cup, like there wasn't women's sports on that much, but when it was on, like, being able to watch that on TV, like really was a catalyst for my growth and probably a lot of girl athletes' growth, right? And if you're not able to watch that, and like now it's so cool, like it's such a perfect time for you guys to be doing this because there like women's sports is growing at such a rapid rate. It's more in the media now. There's more teams that you can go watch in person. And I just can't imagine what my trajectory would have been like if I didn't have access to at least watch some of these things on TV. You know what I mean?
I mean, Steph, you see that happen all the time when we're at games. Like you have
Yeah, all the time. And it's hard to find the sports. We actually have like a post-game survey too, where girls like we know for a fact that girls want to watch more sports. Like it's hard to find, they can't afford the streaming services or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's interesting because there's an amazing thing that happens when we take a lot of these girls to the games. They come kind of, what's the word you use, Amy? Like they come kind of like
they're a little skeptical.
skeptical.
They don't know who you are and what you're up to.
Like, what are you gonna try? Like, what are you trying to get from me type thing? And it's by like halfway into the game, they don't want to leave. Like they see that we're not really trying to do that. And it's an escape and it's a safe place and it's fun. So it's like, I don't know, like there is more and more, again, like how Amy said, research that there's benefits of fanship and viewership too. And you can get some of those same like hits of oxytocin, not totin. What am I?
Tocin.
Yeah. Not my strong suit.
We got you.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like, there's so much, and it's funny because while you guys were talking, I looked up when we think about it, like one of the biggest televised sports thing was the Battle of the Sexes match.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like it drew over 90 million viewers. I looked it up. It's like from, I mean, I forget off the top of my head what year that was. I think it was like 1973.
70 something, yeah.
73. Like, so that's 51 years ago. It was in line with the Super Bowl, which is like still arguably the biggest viewership, you know what I mean? But it's still this conversation about like women's sports, don't have as much viewership, don't have as much media, don't make as much money. The players shouldn't get much, like it all falls down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of people doing really good work, and we just want to be one of those people that are actually moving that needle of how it kind of like changes from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, you guys are giving girls access that may not have access otherwise to actually, experience these things that are so cool. It's like if we have all the games and the attention and stuff, but a lot of half the population or more isn't even able to partake in it, it's like we're missing the mark there. So you guys are really filling like that huge gap.
Yeah, I mean, that stat from the Ernst & Young study that 94% of women in the C-suite played sports growing up, right? So in our study, we found out what percentage of American women either own their own business or in a C-suite role. And it's 4%.
What do you think it is? Oh,
I blew it.
4%.
4%.
Hey, you got it. More.
So all of that talk is about 4% of the population.
Yeah. So it's like, what about the other 96%, which is like a ridiculous thing to say? But like, what about the other 96%? And we also found, I'm pretty sure we also found that like that same study where like 94% are in the C-suite. I mean, like we're an athlete. They also like Prime TV. Does that mean that's
hack videos?
Oh yeah, like Prime and hack video. You know what I mean? Like there's other, I'm sure they all like took a dance class, like they had access to stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like we're kind of again trying to like flip that on its head, and it's like, hey, what about everybody else? And like, yes, we agree that sports make leaders, and that most people in the C-suite that are women played a sport because they had some of that leadership. But what about all the leaders that are lost because they don't have access? Like that's more interesting to figure out than just to say like, they're already here. This is one thing they have in common.
So speaking of leadership, when I was looking through the study, like those slides, one of the things, so it says data indicates improved socialization and acceptance among girls who play team sports. One of the biggest differences was the I am a leader, which was 74% of girls who play sports, and it could be play or watch sports, but who play sports is it's 74% say I am a leader, and only 57% who don't play sports, they say that I'm a leader. So big, I know that didn't come across right, but 74% of girls who play sports said I'm a leader, only 57% of girls that don't play sports said I'm a leader. So that was like one of the biggest differences when I was looking at the numbers. Like, I want to hear what you guys have to say about, like, why do you think that there was such a bigger gap with that specific leadership thing as opposed to maybe some of the other things that were in the study?
I mean, leadership is huge, right? And we think about it a lot. We talk about it a lot. I think we all assume that being a leader is important and is something that everyone aspires to. And I think for many people it is. And I do think that we saw a huge difference in, to your point, it was one of the largest statistically significant differences
Yeah.
between those two subsets, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is, it's one of the three pillars of Section Z is confidence, right? Like as women, you think and talk and hear a lot about imposter syndrome and all these things about second guessing yourself. And that isn't nearly as common a conversation among men, right? And so that sense, what does it mean to be a leader? It's to have confidence to step up and to make decisions and to believe in what you're doing. And those are all really, really valid and really important, right? Something that we also have spent some time thinking about and are still exploring, to be honest, is the power of followership as well, right? Because in order for someone to be a leader, you have to have at least one follower.
Right.
And it's interesting too, like the definition of a team is it isn't just about one person and it isn't just one leader, right? There's something important about being a follower as well, which ties into, we also aren't making the assumption that everyone wants a C-suite job. Yeah. And that everybody wants a traditionally defined as successful career, right? And so that's why when Steph runs the workshops and we talk about the three pillars and transferable life skills, we are not jamming them down a path of you should aspire to go to college or you should aspire to be in the C-suite. There's a lot of definitions of happiness and success, and society and culture and our economy are changing so rapidly that there are lots of STEM jobs. There are jobs in logistics. You can be a welder, you can be a plumber, there are lots of jobs that women would be good at that have a very natural parallel to the situation within sports, right? And I don't know, Steph, if you want to talk about the data on the dropout rates aligns with this.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting because we did find that, there's 40% of girls, like the going around stat. We didn't find this, but this was, I mean, we found this as well, but this existed, that 40% of women drop out of sports between the age 13 and 14, which is interesting. Again, this around the same time, a very close percentage drop out of aspiring to have a career in a STEM related industry. So it's interesting, like and again, for me, that comes back to messaging, which messaging comes back to exposure and representation, which is we show girls that like they're not supposed to be that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we take that away from them almost. Like that's what we do. Like we take it away from them. They're like, oh, I want to be an engineer. I want to be a welder. I want to be an electrician. Like they think these things, and then we're like, oh no, that's for men. And they're like, oh, that's not for me. I don't belong. Which is crazy because we all agree that sports is somewhere where we belong, right? So like we want to keep nurturing that feeling of belong. So we do. We are one of our curriculums we build around like STEM stuff, STEM related jobs. We work with partners that, offer STEM related careers. And it's like kind of figuring out that pipeline to take them down and show them what's possible. But it all comes back to messaging and to the exposure, to the representation, to telling more of these female athlete stories. And listen,
Mhm.
like the percentage of women that are going to be professional athletes, the percentage of people that are going to be professional athletes, very small, right? The percentage of people that are going to be a college athlete, very small, right? But it's like all these jobs are possible with these transferable skills. And when you go to any sports event, I'm pretty sure sports and music probably one and the same, where the most types of jobs are involved in making it happen. Like there's players, there's coaches, there's trainers,
Yeah,
there's ticket people, there's marketing, there's attorneys, there's doctors, like across the board, there's every type of job you can be. So by,
for
some
sure.
of the interviews we do with the people that work in different jobs and exposing that, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
exposure and that access shows them I can be this. It shows them this does exist for me. And that, along with the excitement, keeps them playing, which then keeps them getting the benefits that everyone agrees on, which then sets them up for success, right? Like that's kind of like our
Yeah.
loose math problem, you know?
And
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
the same
it's
thing, right? Like going and seeing women playing soccer, there's an even parallel to doing these interviews and doing these panel discussions where you hear women talk about what career they ended up in. And for these girls, just seeing that face and hearing that story, afterwards, we hear them say, teaches them that they don't have to have it all figured out and they don't have to be perfect right now in 8th grade. And they can change their mind, they can change their career. We know from other research that kids in general can only aspire to jobs of people they have heard about in real life,
for sure, yeah.
right? And so just by giving them these other faces and hearing these other stories, it expands their horizons exponentially.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
even
mean, like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, even as an adult, if I hear of someone doing something really cool, I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before. That's amazing. Like I'll read books and I'm like, that's possible for me too. So it's not just the kids, it's even
Exactly.
me. You know what I
That's
mean?
one of the things that comes in on our post-event survey
Yeah.
that I didn't know that career existed. I didn't
Yeah.
know a job like this was possible. And like when we get those, it's like, yes. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
kind of like
That's
the
huge.
true like, okay, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, because I mean, you guys, it's not about putting someone in a box and like, okay, you have to be this, or if you play sports, you got to be a leader and you have to be C. Like, no, you can
Exactly.
do literally whatever you want, and I
That's
love
the
that you guys
goal.
talked on that. Yeah,
It's
That's the goal.
also interesting. One of the things that I wanted to share was one of the focus groups that I led sometime last year. I forget exactly when, but I was asking about this leadership thing. And yes, like I think when we go back to like why they think they're a leader, what they really mean at the younger age is they have confidence, right? Like
for
there's a
sure.
lot of different layers of leadership that like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of like they know that that word in their mind equals I'm strong, I'll try new things, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, I remember I asked the question like, how many of you feel like you're a leader? How many of you want to be a leader? Like I go about it, I asked a couple different ways. And there
Yeah.
was one girl that raised her hand and she was like, I don't think that this is what you're gonna want to hear, but I don't want to be a leader. And I was like, okay, tell me about this. And she said, because if this isn't verbatim, but she said something to the effect of, because if I'm the leader, I have to worry about everything else. And sports is the one place where I feel like I don't have to worry about everything else. And I'm part of something equally, which
For
is like
sure.
super powerful. So again,
Yeah.
the whole messaging around that word can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah. I love that where, she said that I like either way, like I'm a part of something big, whether you're the leader or the so-called follower, which I don't really love that word, but
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, it's like you're still part of something. And just because you're not a leader, say on your team, like you can be a leader in your household, you can be just a leader of yourself. You know what I mean? It's like leader
Right, which
doesn't
is
need
good
to
enough.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the leader of this big group. It's like, no, I'm just going to lead my life the way I want to lead
There's
my
a
life.
lot of pressure on kids now. There's
Yeah,
a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
yeah. And I feel like you guys, what you're doing kind of takes off some of that pressure in the way that they see and collaborate with other girls, and they see what's possible, and they have fun. Like, probably the thing that they enjoy the most at the games is they just have fun, right? Like, they can just let loose and have fun.
I think they can let loose, have fun. I think they love spending time with their teammates.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that they say, it's like, I got to go somewhere with my teammates. I
Mhm.
felt like I belonged. It was exciting to see people that look like me on the field is a big
Yeah,
one.
for sure.
So stuff like that, again, like for me, it's really big with that exposure and relatability, you know?
It's a sense of community, right? They're
Yeah.
part of something. Like they feel it's almost like a sorority, for lack of a better word, right? Like once they've gone to a Section Z event, like they're part of a group of girls who have done this, right? And they feel like part of something. And then it's part of that bigger sense of community of they met these women who have these jobs and they see these women who played on the field. And you know, that's sort of the big idea behind it, is connecting all of those different realms and showing people that full flywheel of participating and those skills and what the benefit of those skills is throughout your life.
And it's interesting when you say the word sorority too. And again, I'm sure that means a lot of things for a lot of different people, but in the sense that we're using it is like a bond. And also what we want to create at Section Z and are creating at Section Z is not only that community, but that networking, right? Like so many things in life and so many career opportunities because who you know. And it's like the
Yeah,
whole thing. It's like if you
totally.
don't go to the big school and get the big connections, you know, like it's all
Mhm.
that. So part of the Section Z community is creating that, is exposing, like when we do, one of our partners is AEG, Global Partners. And when we do events down there and we interview the women, they're all like, take my info, reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're here for. We all needed someone to help us
Yeah.
do it. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
that sense, you know, Amy has this great analogy that she says that I feel like women, I feel we feel more positive about this, but I feel like there's always been this underlying theme where like it's musical chairs, right? Like women at the top, it's like there's not a lot of room. And if I
When a new one
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
up,
you can tell
when
me,
Yeah.
you
when a
can
new
correct
one
me.
when a new one shows up, someone else has to lose her chair. So
Right.
everybody's
Yeah,
nervous.
Right.
for
And like
sure.
for us, a lot of the women that and we're very like that. Like we, again, like we stated, I think we said it earlier, I'm not sure if we said it on this, but when we were talking earlier, like we don't create, like we don't offer play, like playing
Yeah.
the sport as part of Section Z. We partner with people and we set up play experiences for the
Yeah,
of Section Z, but there are a lot of people out there doing it great and we're stronger together. So
for
they can
sure.
focus on that and we can partner and do some amazing things.
Right.
And we can focus on the exposure to the game day experience, the career paths, the pipeline, you know what I mean? Like the things
Yeah,
that we're trying to do. And we're very much like, if you're doing something cool and like we're all at the end of the day have the same goal of
for
like
sure.
access, opportunity, empowering young leaders, you know, there's that word again, leaders, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's all do
Yeah,
it together. That's kind of, you know, why we
There's
want
room
to
for
share this
everybody.
data, why we want to share everything that we're doing so we can figure
for
out how we can
sure.
all work together. Because not only is there a lot of heart in what we're
Yeah.
doing, but on the flip side to a lot of the data too, there's a lot of ROI for the investment in women's sports.
For sure. Um, yeah, I mean, so you guys are in LA, right? Like kind of, but just curious, like, do you have goals or I guess aspirations to do this in other areas to like, you know what I mean,
Starting
to grow? I mean, I know it's still so new, but just yeah, curious on that.
No, we starting January, we're not going to be in just LA. We've actually done
Oh,
LA
okay.
and San Francisco. We've done an event up at Bay
Sweet.
FC.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Okay.
we have a new partnership with League One Volleyball. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's the new professional women's volleyball.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to be doing events in Austin and in Houston.
Mm,
And
nice.
we feel very confident in our scale model, which is like, you know, something just to touch on it, but the way that we see it, it's like you've got the high schools and the middle schools that we take, you know, as brand partners come in through NIL deals, we
Mm,
will get college athletes to come be part of our game day experience. So instead of
okay.
like, you know, trying to sell something else, they're going to be kind of part of some experience. So it's like the young athlete gets to see the college athlete, right? So step by step.
Yeah.
And then the college athlete gets to make impact, gets to put things on their resume, gets to have relationships with brand partners, gets to have relationships with pro teams so that they can take the next step. And then the business will get people in our pipeline that have all kind of went through this Section Z program so that they know that they've got these transferable skills, right? Like that's like our big
kind of the flywheel. Yeah. And then
yeah.
go
Led
ahead.
by strategy of Amy Snow.
Amy,
A lot of
kudos.
brainstorming went into that,
A
but
lot
yeah.
of brainstorming.
I mean, you guys got a very smart team. You guys are both very smart. You got a smart team. Like it's really cool. And like, so you guys partner with schools, you guys partner with pro teams. What like, how do you guys, I guess, start those partnerships? How do the schools get involved? Like that kind of stuff.
So that first school that I told you about that a friend knew, the athletic director in Long Island, where I'm from, that was our first one. And then when we got asked to come back, I called her and I was like, hey, do you know somebody that would want to do this same program? It's all word of mouth, you know,
Okay.
and we then partnered with another in Los Angeles, mostly we deal with charter schools. So it's a
Okay.
little bit like LAUSD is a big, like Los Angeles Unified School District is a big, lots of moving parts. We've found, and like we're happy to have them, but you know, we've done our partnerships through mostly charter schools, but it's all been word of mouth. We have a partnership with Compton Unified School District, El Rancho, like there's a bunch of different like smaller unified school districts that we have. And then we also on our Instagram, which is at the Section Z, we have a form, like a participation form. Like we have a wait list right now of events that schools and teams and girls that want to come to our events. So it's never really a problem finding the schools. I think it's some of the approach, you know, like I think it's, you know, I go to the schools, I introduce myself, I do a little like pitch or I do Zoom and say like, this is what we're trying to do. And this is what we've done and kind of like show them our whole story. But that's kind of like how we find all of the school partners. The teams go ahead.
I was going to say, she's got the schools and the waiting list. We've got the relationships with the leagues and the teams, and in many cases, athletes, although there's always room for more athletes, right? I think the piece that we work the most on is there's a lot of brands who are now starting to wake up to the fact that women's sports is a very highly engaged audience, and that it's slightly more difficult to, it's hard to calculate ROI of investment in advertising and marketing at all, ever, because of the way the world is now and how everything's so splintered. But everyone has accepted that men's sports has high ROI. Now we're starting to see that women's sports does too. It's a smaller, more niche necessary, you know, it's a different calculation. But I think the thing is that some brands are going in and sponsoring leagues or teams, and something like Section Z is an opportunity for them to have a more authentic touch point, because instead of just putting advertising out, which is somewhat passive, right? Underwriting a program like this gives them an opportunity to actually have a meaningful touch point with a really hard to reach demographic. And so that's kind of the biggest piece that we're focusing on at this point, is trying to build brand partnerships and building out, you know, a lot of times what we'll do is build out a custom curriculum that's in the same industry. Like, for example, if it was a bank, it could be a financial literacy program. If it, you know, she did a sustainable clothing program, like, you know, there's opportunity to continue to play that out in with their employees, their DEI programs, their CSR programs, right? But I think that's sort of the hardest nut to crack of this, is how to get partnered up with the brands who now have woken up and want to be active in this space. But I think it's hard for them to know exactly how to be active in this space in a way that's authentic and actually makes a difference.
Yeah, like we're that turnkey program that's like, we check all your boxes.
You don't have to figure it out. We've already figured it out. We reach a hard to reach demographic, but instead of just having your name go around or be on a sign at a game, it's actually like, let's do something meaningful. And, you know, so you can see like in the picture in Steph's background, like, you know, you see the logo on the shirt and then the girls ask about it, or it's like something like, you know, in alignment with who the company is, or something like that. That's kind of the big challenge, I think, right now.
Okay. Yeah. And like for someone listening to this, whether they're just want to help, or whether they are, have access to, schools in that area or businesses. Like, how can people from various, backgrounds and expertise like get involved and help and support you guys?
I think, I mean, reach out to us, because I feel like,
Okay.
there's a lot of different ways. I mean, like, there's the basic ways, like, we'd love a follow on Instagram. We all know how that works. The more eyeballs, the more
Yeah,
brand power,
for
you know
sure.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. A lot of people come to our socials, but because we're still like figuring out some of the messaging and some of that, it's like we have 20,000 people come to our socials, but only 700 followers right now. You know what I mean? Like, build that,
For sure.
So to answer your question, I think the way people can get involved is to give us a follow at the Section Z. Always, if you have a partnership idea, contact, reach out to us, let us know, get us involved with that. I mean, we also have a donation form on our website, which is the sectionz.com. The funds that we raise from people help go towards these experiences. We're actually having a big party here in a few weeks, so we'll have like a silent auction live for stuff like that too. I'm not sure all the technical things about that yet, but we'll have them on our website. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
but it's all the, look, it's a 501(c)(3), so like individual donors are always welcome. Companies match those donations.
Yeah.
We have relationships with a couple of family foundations who have underwritten specific events, right? So it doesn't take very much money to underwrite one event, right? So like a family foundation who, we have one family who sees the impact of sports on the outcome of their family. And, so they wanted to do a specific event. We had a custom curriculum around that. Or, if someone's in marketing or PR or,
spread the word.
What would you say?
I said, spread the word.
Any CSR role. Like, this is something that, a lot of companies, just from my own experience, a lot of companies want to be involved, but they're not sure, is it marketing? Is it CSR? How to get started, how to find a reputable organization. And so, I guess we would say that the logistics are figured out, it's proven, like, it's less of a gamble than trying to figure it out on your own. So, if someone does work at a company like that and feels like there could be opportunity, we'd love that.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, anything else that before I kind of move on that you guys want to share as far as people getting connected and, helping out? Okay, we'll link everything up. But yeah, I'll link up donation forms, your guys' Instagrams, all that kind of stuff. But I guess I have one more, might be a big question, but just kind of curious, like, and maybe you already talked about this when we were talking about the study, but like, what was like one of the biggest, I guess, surprises in the study that you really weren't expecting that kind of maybe change your perspective? Was there anything big that kind of changed your perspective on either what you do or just how sports impacts women and girls as a whole?
You want to talk about the shirt stuff?
No, you talk about that one, because I have something else to talk
about. Okay, cool.
So one of the questions, this was probably one of the most surprising things to me. One of the questions that we asked all the nearly 5,000 girls and women, 9 to 75, so pretty much representative of America today, how much they love, don't know a whole series of athletes.
Oh, yeah.
And we included male and female athletes in that battery, right? So Michael Jordan, Travis Kelce, Tom Brady, stacked up among all these female athletes, right? Yeah. And when we were looking at the data and we sort it in descending order by love, how much you love that athlete, among the total 4,848 people, guess who the number one most loved athlete was in that whole list?
Well, I'm pretty sure I looked. Is it Serena Williams?
Oh, yeah.
You're close. It was Simone Biles.
Simone Biles, that's right. Okay, that was going to be my second guess.
Simone Biles.
Yeah.
And then both Williams sisters.
Yeah, they were both at the top, huh?
And so, I mean, and Simone Biles, that was before the Olympics. That was July.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then that probably even more now if you did it after that.
Yeah.
So of the top, what was it, Steph? Of the top,
it was of the top 10, there was 6 women of the top 10.
Okay.
The 6 women were Simone Biles, Serena Williams, Venus Williams, Michelle Kwan, Caitlin Clark,
Wow.
and Naomi Osaka. How do I say her?
Osaka.
Osaka.
Yeah, okay, Osaka, sorry.
Cool.
But she was tied. But the shirt that she's referencing, that ampersand shirt, like the all the Beatles where they did John and Ring on it, we made a t-shirt because
Oh.
the top 5 that beat Tom Brady and Travis Kelce was Biles and Williams and Kwan and Clark.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Do you
Yeah,
guys have that shirt?
We do.
Yeah, the shirt is actually available on our website too, and we call
Okay.
it Much Love. We're working on merch and we're doing a bunch of stuff we have in the works, but we made some of those shirts for the research conference, but it literally said
Okay.
Biles and Williams and Kwan and Clark, and that's why. And it's called More Love because there was more love for those 5 women and it was crazy. There was more love for Simone Biles and Serena Williams than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I saw that. That's crazy.
Which is
And
insane.
yeah.
That's our long answer to your question of what was the most surprising. Like if you had asked me before the study, just go out on the streets and ask people who they love more. And I would have told you that Michael Jordan probably just for the tenure of his career and just
For sure. Or Mike or LeBron or something.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you what a nerve it's touching and how important these women are to girls and women.
And I think the Michelle Kwan thing is interesting because that's probably like the older generation.
You're exactly right.
It's like most girls listening now are like, who's Michelle Kwan?
You're exactly right. That's why she's further down in the list is because it's so skewed. That's why Simone Biles and the Williams sisters are at the top is because they had more multi-generational appeal.
For sure.
Michelle Kwan's was highly stacked towards the older cohort and the younger cohort was like, I'm not sure who that is.
But it's interesting because it's Kwan and then Clark. And I think we can all agree that the Caitlin Clark movement is like one of the biggest women's sports movements that's been in a while. And that's the whole young demo. And the older people might not know what's happening there. You know what I mean? So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's like the 3 that I think go across all generations, Biles, Williams, and Williams. And then you got Kwan and Clark, with the different generations.
Yeah.
But
Steph, did you have something surprising?
I think for me, surprising, but for me, something that rings true, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, was and it's something that a friend of ours, Jen Welter, said the other day when we were discussing some of this stuff. All sports start with a relationship. Yeah. You know what I mean? Someone introduces you, a coach, a player on TV, something. And for me, it was interesting because I am excited about the fact that I think that this makes people more open as humans and open to relationships and having confidence and education is what leads healthy relationships and openness and acceptance in our world, period. So besides with sports, some of those findings were interesting to me to see that it was on point. You know what I mean? All the Section Z stuff is what we needed to get, but that human thing, because I feel that sports is that for me. It's that human equalizer. So seeing the data, and so it's not one specific thing, but seeing the data and how human it is and how important it is, and how much it is that great equalizer for me. And one of the things that to that was we can all agree with these barriers and this different access with different funding and different family household incomes. But it was interesting because when you ask the kids across the board how important it is, regardless of how much access they have, it's all the same importance. Yeah. So it's that to me is kind of one of the biggest, which again shows that all kids should have access to this. But it was, I think it was 70%. Well, you know which one I'm talking about, Amy? Do you remember?
Yeah. So it was upwards of 71 to 73%, regardless of socioeconomic status or household income. So even though when we slice it, we see that girls from the lower quartiles of household income participate at much lower rates because they're being blocked. When they do participate and you ask them how important it is to the outcome of their life and how important it is to them as an activity, it's just as, if not more important.
Yeah, actually, I remember looking at those charts, and maybe
Pie
we'll
chart.
put those
Yeah.
up there. Yeah, I was
That
looking
was
at
one of
those,
my
and
favorite like
yeah,
diagrams
I mean,
and
because someone might think like, oh, you're not playing at an elite level and you're not on this travel team, like you don't find it as important. But that study proves that no matter the level, the socioeconomic background, like it's just as important to these girls. Which, yeah, that one really stuck with me too.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, guys, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like we could go on, but I know you guys are busy people. You guys got a big mission to fulfill on. But I just want to thank you guys, number one, for what you're doing with Section Z, and number two, for coming on, for doing this study. So yeah, thank you guys for just making a difference in this world. I'm excited for, what you guys are going to do in the next few years. But yeah, I appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing all of this with us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thanks for having us. It was super fun.
Yeah, thanks, guys.